Hey everyone, welcome back to another deep dive. Today we're going to be looking at Hymn 6 by Chithambaram Ramalinga Swamy. So he was a 19th century Indian poet and a philosopher. And I think, this one might have you thinking a bit differently about how to achieve true happiness, maybe.
Yeah, so Ramalinga Swamy was really a remarkable figure. He belonged to the Shaivite tradition, which is a branch of Hinduism that places a huge importance on this idea of divine grace. Now, Shaivism emphasizes that there's a divine force that's actively supporting our growth and our evolution. So it's not just about us striving for enlightenment on our own, but it's really about recognizing this force that's already working inside of us.
That idea of divine grace is so interesting. The hymn actually says that all evil is transformed into goodness through divine grace. Now, do you think that's meant literally? I mean, honestly, there are some things in the world that just seem like irredeemably bad.
It is a bold statement.
Yeah, sure.
But I think the key here is transformation, not erasure. Ramalinga Swamy is suggesting that. Divine grace kind of acts like a lens, changing the way that we perceive even the most difficult experiences. Imagine like putting on a pair of glasses that suddenly allow you to see the potential for growth and for learning in situations that you may have labeled as purely negative before.
Okay, so it's not about the bad stuff just magically disappearing. It's more about like our perspective shifting. It's like we're learning to see the world through a different filter.
Exactly. That shift in perspective, that's where the true transformation happens.
Yeah.
We start to understand that even in darkness, there's a seed of potential there. There's a chance for growth and evolution.
Oh, this reminds me of that saying, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Is that kind of what he's getting at?
There's definitely a parallel there. But Hymn 6 actually goes a step further. It suggests that divine grace doesn't just make us stronger. It grants us what he calls blissful wisdom, free from delusion, in other words. It allows us to see the world clearly, unclouded by our fears, our biases, all those other things. That can distort our perception.
I am really curious about this blissful wisdom. What does that actually look like? What does that feel like? Is it something that we can achieve on our own? Or is divine grace the only path there?
Well, think of it as a state of profound understanding and inner peace. It's a clarity. That lets us see the truth, not just the surface, but the underlying reality. Now, while personal effort and spiritual practices can contribute to this clarity, the hymn suggests that divine grace really plays a pivotal role in removing those deep-seated delusions that can prevent us from seeing the world as it truly is. So
is divine grace kind of like a key that unlocks that deeper level of understanding?
It's a beautiful analogy. It's like divine grace removes this veil of illusion and allows us to experience a profound shift in perspective, a shift that brings about true and lasting peace and joy.
The hymn also describes a divine figure as the form of divine love and salt, the essence of compassion. It almost feels like this comforting presence, like a source of support on this journey. What are your thoughts on that?
Ramalinga Swamy isn't just talking about abstract concepts. He's conveying a deeply personal experience of the divine. He's pointing to this compassionate, loving presence that's always available to us, offering guidance and solace as we navigate the ups and downs of life.
And that connection to this divine presence, that's what ultimately leads to eternal well-being, right? That's another phrase from the hymn that really stood out to me.
You're catching all the important bits. Eternal well-being refers to this state of lasting peace and fulfillment that goes beyond the limitations of our physical existence. It's a state of profound connection with the divine, a state that transcends the transient nature of the material world.
So it's like saying that true happiness comes from something much deeper and more lasting than the things that we typically chase after in the world.
Exactly. Ramalinga Swamy is suggesting that true fulfillment arises from spiritual connection and understanding. By aligning ourselves with this divine energy, embracing the wisdom it offers, we tap into this wellspring of peace and purpose that goes beyond the fleeting pleasures of the world.
I think that's something that a lot of us are searching for, that sense of deeper meaning and purpose. It's certainly resonating with me.
It's a universal longing. And Hymn 6 offers a path, a way to access this wellspring of fulfillment. But there's a crucial element that we haven't talked about yet, and it might surprise you: the importance of the present moment.
I'm all ears, tell me more. So we've got divine grace, we've got a compassionate divine presence, and we've got eternal well-being. But how does the present moment fit into all this? It feels kind of unexpected in the context of a poem about spiritual enlightenment.
Yeah, that's what's so fascinating about Hymn 6, is that it weaves together these seemingly disparate ideas in a really profound way. The poem actually emphasizes the present moment as a rare and powerful gift, Ramalinga Swamy isn't just talking about some abstract concept of enlightenment that we're striving for. He's saying that the potential for transformation is right here, right now, in every single moment.
So it's not about waiting for some future event, some big spiritual awakening. It's about recognizing the power of this very moment.
Exactly. It is so easy to get caught up in regrets about the past, anxieties about the future. We miss out on the incredible potential that exists in the here and now. Ramalinga Swamy is urging us to shift our focus, to really become present to the moment, and recognize the opportunity that it holds.
Well, I can definitely see how that could be challenging. Life is busy, you know? We got jobs, families, responsibilities. How do we actually cultivate that sense of presence amidst all the chaos?
Well, it's definitely a practice. It's something that we need to cultivate intentionally, but even small steps can make a big difference. One practice that Ramalinga Swamy himself emphasized was focusing on the breath.
Breath work. That's interesting. It seems so simple. Almost too simple. How could that possibly lead to such profound transformation?
Well, think about it. The breath is always with us. It's kind of like an anchor to the present moment when we bring our attention to our breath, even for a few moments. We're essentially training our minds to come back to the here and now.
So it's like a little mental reset button we can press throughout the day.
Exactly. And as we become more present, more aware of this moment, something really remarkable happens. We start to notice the subtle ways in which divine grace is already working in our lives.
Okay, now I'm intrigued. What kinds of things might we start noticing?
You might notice a sense of gratitude for simple things that you may have taken for granted before. Maybe it's the warmth of the sun on your skin, the taste of your morning coffee, the laughter of a loved one. These ordinary experiences suddenly take on a new significance, a kind of luminosity.
So it's not necessarily about having some mystical vision or supernatural experience. It's about seeing the beauty and sacredness in the everyday.
Exactly. And that shift in perspective, that's one of the hallmarks of divine grace. It allows us to see the world with fresh eyes, to appreciate the abundance that's already present in our lives.
I'm also noticing this recurring theme of transformation in Hymn 6. It seems like everything is pointing to this idea of change, of evolution. Is that a core principle in Shaivism?
Absolutely. In Shaivism, the universe is seen as this dynamic dance of creation and destruction, constantly evolving and transforming. And divine grace is the force that propels this transformation, both on a cosmic level and within our own individual lives.
So we're not meant to be static beings. We're meant to be constantly growing and changing.
Precisely. And that process of transformation, that's where the real beauty and excitement of life lies. It's about embracing the unknown, shedding old patterns, and allowing ourselves to be shaped and molded by the forces of divine grace.
That sounds both exhilarating and a little terrifying, if I'm being honest. Is there a way to make this process feel a little less daunting?
Or remember what we were talking about earlier, the present moment. When we bring our attention to the here and now, we're not overwhelmed by the vastness of the entire journey. We're simply focusing on taking one step at a time, trusting that divine grace is guiding us every step of the way.
It's like that saying, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. We don't have to figure everything out all at once.
You got it. And as we take those steps, as we cultivate presence and awareness, we become more and more receptive to the guidance of divine grace. It's like we're tuning into a frequency that was previously unavailable to us.
This is all making so much sense. But I can't help but wonder, what if we miss the signs? What if we're not attuned to that frequency? Do we just miss out on the benefits of divine grace?
That's where the beauty of Hymn 6 really shines through. Ramalinga Swamy assures us that divine grace is always available, always present. It's not something we earn or deserve. It's a gift that's freely given.
So it's like the sun is always shining, even if we can't see it because of the clouds.
That's a wonderful analogy. Divine grace is constantly radiating, even if we're not always aware of it. But as we cultivate presence, as we quiet the noise of the mind, those clouds start to dissipate, allowing the light of divine grace to shine through more and more brightly.
There's that image of transformation again. It seems like Hymn 6 is ultimately a call to action, an invitation to awaken to this transformative power that's already within us.
You've hit the nail on the head. It's an invitation to embrace the present moment, to connect with that divine presence that's always available to us, and to embark on this journey of transformation that leads to eternal well-being.
Yeah, that's such a powerful message, and I think it's something that resonates deeply with so many people today. We're all searching for that sense of peace and purpose and connection, but I think there's still one piece of the puzzle that we haven't fully explored. How do we actually access this divine grace in a tangible, practical way?
That's a great question. And it's one that we're going to delve into as we continue our deep dive into Hymn 6.
So we've been talking about this incredible concept of divine grace, this force that can transform our perceptions, guide us toward wisdom, and even connect us to a loving presence. It all sounds pretty amazing, but I think some of our listeners, like me, might be wondering, how do we actually tap into this divine grace? Is there a secret formula, a special ritual?
I love that you're asking this.
Yeah.
Because Hymn 6 isn't just this beautiful piece of poetry. It's really a practical guide to experiencing divine grace in our everyday lives. And you know what? There really are no secret formulas. Ramalinga Swamy points to practices that are remarkably simple yet incredibly powerful.
Okay, give me an example. What's one of these practices that we can start incorporating into our lives?
Remember how we talked about the importance of the breath as an anchor to the present moment? Well, taking that a step further, Ramalinga Swamy encourages the practice of mindful breathing. It's not just breathing, it's becoming deeply aware of each inhale and each exhale, noticing the sensations of the breath as it moves through your body.
So it's like we're turning the volume up on our awareness of the breath, but what does that actually do for us?
When we focus on the breath in this way, our minds naturally begin to quiet down. All those racing thoughts and worries, anxieties, they start to fade into the background, and we create space for a deeper connection to ourselves and ultimately to divine grace.
I see, that makes sense. It's like we're clearing out the clutter so that something new can emerge. But if I'm being honest, I struggle with meditation. My mind is like, binky binky, a monkey swinging from vine to vine. Any tips for those of us who aren't exactly Zen masters?
You're not alone. Lots of people find it challenging to sit still and quiet the mind. That's why Ramalinga Swamy also emphasized the power of service as a path to divine grace.
Service, as in helping others. How does that connect to spiritual enlightenment?
In Shaivism, there's a beautiful concept called NB Sivam, which means love is God. When we act with love and compassion, when we serve others without expectation, we're essentially embodying that divine energy.
So it's like by putting love into action, we're aligning ourselves with divine grace.
Precisely. And here's the beautiful thing about it. It doesn't have to be some grand gesture. It could be as simple as holding the door for someone, lending a listening ear to a friend in need, volunteer your time at a local charity. Every act of kindness, no matter how small, becomes a step on that path toward divine grace.
I like that. That's really encouraging. It feels like something that anyone can do, regardless of background or beliefs. It's about making those small, intentional choices throughout the day to act with love and compassion.
You got it. And as we cultivate this practice of service, we begin to notice a shift inside. Our hearts open, our minds become more peaceful, and we feel a deeper sense of connection to something larger than ourselves.
It sounds like we're gradually transforming ourselves, both inwardly and outwardly, through these practices. I'm really starting to understand how Hymn 6 is both the spiritual text and a practical guide to living a more fulfilling life.
That's exactly what Ramalinga Swamy intended. He wanted to show people that divine grace isn't just this distant concept, it's a living reality that we can all experience right here, right now, through simple yet powerful practices.
This has been such a powerful exploration of Hymn 6. I feel like I've gained a whole new perspective on the phone, on divine grace, and even on my own spiritual journey. Any final words of wisdom for our listeners before we wrap up?
I would simply encourage them to experiment with these practices. Mindful breathing acts of service, cultivating presence in your daily life. See what unfolds. You might be surprised by the subtle yet profound ways in which divine grace begins to weave its magic into your life.
That's a beautiful invitation. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, everyone. We hope you feel inspired to explore these ideas further and discover the transformative power of divine grace in your own lives.